Our reading this morning comes from C.S. Lewis, who called pride the great sin. In his book, Mere Christianity, Lewis writes, "Pride is the essential vice, the utmost evil. Other sins are flea bites in comparison to pride. Pride is the way that the devil became the devil. Pride is the complete anti-God state of mind." Excuse me. If you want to find out how proud you are, the easiest way is to ask yourself, how much do I dislike it when other people snub me, or refuse to take any notice of me, or patronize me, or show off? Each person's pride is in competition with everybody else's pride. The prideful person gets no pleasure out of having something, only out of having more of it than the next person. We say that people are proud of being rich, or clever, or good-looking, but they're not. They are proud of being richer, or cleverer, or better than other people. If everyone else became equally rich, or clever, or good-looking, there would be nothing to be proud about. It is the comparison that makes you proud, the pleasure of being above the rest. Once the element of competition has gone, pride has gone. Nearly all those evils in the world which people put down to greed or selfishness are really far more the result of pride. Power is what pride really enjoys. As long as you are proud, you cannot know God. Pride is a spiritual cancer. It eats up the very possibility of love or contentment or even common sense. Humility is the antidote to pride. To acquire humility, the first step is to realize that one is proud. Nothing good whatever can come until we give up our pride. And that's the words of C.S. Lewis.
Thank you, Kay. So, not to argue with C.S. Lewis, but I got to tell you that I am proud to be a Unitarian Universalist. I am proud to be part of a religion that works for justice and promotes respect for all people. I am proud of this church. We are a spirited bunch, and every day we are making a positive difference in people's lives. I am proud of the outreach and the support that we have been able to offer to several refugee families this past year. I am proud of our efforts to be a voice for change and advocate with our metro government to invest in more sustainable energy. I am proud and inspired by the way that we have stuck together as a community during the ups and the downs and the more ups and downs of this pandemic. And I am proud that this church, my church, will be out marching in the streets of Louisville this coming weekend. I am extremely proud to be able to be your minister. I am proud to say that I serve you. Now that is a lot of pride. And, now with C.S. Lewis, if what he says about pride is true, if it truly is a spiritual cancer and the anti-God state of mind, then maybe I've got a problem. If we, as a congregation, are proud that we changed our name, that we started a new statewide justice network, that we have great music, that we present engaging educational programs, then maybe we've got a problem. In celebrating Pride Month here at All Peoples, and in participating in next weekend's Pride Parade, are we celebrating the utmost sin, the essential evil? Well, I certainly hope not. The definition of pride as one of the 7 deadly sins has its origins in the biblical book of Proverbs. In the 6th chapter, it lists 6 things that the Lord hateth. The top of the list is a proud look. In 590 A.D., Pope Gregory the Great revised the original biblical text and created the Catholic doctrine of the 7 cardinal or mortal sins. The list became part of popular culture after it was included in Dante's Divine Comedy. Pride, greed, gluttony, lust, sloth, envy, and anger. It's an interesting list. I think it's notable that murder is not on it. Hatred is not there either. But pride is. In fact, pride was declared not only among those mortal sins, but the gravest of all the mortal sins. In describing what makes a sin a mortal sin and graver than other transgressions, Thomas Aquinas wrote this: "A cardinal sin, or a capital sin, is that which has an exceedingly desirable end, so that in his desire for it, a man goes on to commit many sins. It is not the gravity of the vice in itself that makes it capital, but rather the fact that it gives rise to many other transgressions." Aquinas is saying that the qualities on this list are the roots of all evil in the human heart. The traditional teachings about the mortal status of pride seem to be in direct conflict with our modern ideas about the importance of pride. Many of us consider pride a virtue rather than a vice, let alone the most evil of all the sins. Any therapist or counselor or social worker will tell you that having a positive self-regard is vital to our emotional health. Low self-esteem leads to all kinds of unhealthy and destructive behaviors. Any teacher or parent knows that a part of their job is to help create a sense of self-worth in our children. We wholeheartedly buy into this notion that you can't love others unless you love yourself. We buy into this so much here at All Peoples that, in Unitarian Universalism, we believe in pride. We believe in self-esteem. Unitarian Universalist religious educator Sophia Foss famously wrote that we are a religion that teaches and promotes beliefs which nurture self-confidence and the feeling of self-worth. So what gives? When it comes to ethics and values, are we, Unitarian Universalists, really that far away from our Christian ancestors and neighbors? Are we so totally different that what we call a virtue, they call the ultimate vice? Well, I don't think so. In fact, I know that we are not. The problem is that the word pride is used in different ways. It has different meanings. The pride talked about in the Bible and on Pope Gregory's list of infamous no-nos is not the same thing as the pride that we're going to be celebrating on Saturday and are working to instill in our children and in each other. Theology professor Paul Sands from Baylor University has written extensively on the subject of pride and the seeming disconnection between our modern secular sensibilities and the traditional Christian doctrines. Sands writes this: "Few words in our moral vocabulary convey so wide a spectrum of meanings as pride. It can connotate anything from narcissism to self-confidence to just plain self-respect. Many disagreements over the moral status of pride can be traced to differences in how the word is understood," he says. I think to better understand the differences and the true meaning of the Christian doctrine of pride as a sin, it is helpful to go back to its original context. In the first list of 7 deadly sins, the original word pride used by the church fathers was the Greek word hyperephania, which means hubris. The Latin translation is superbia. The type of pride that is being referred to here is not self-esteem or self-respect. It is a form of inflated self-esteem that comes out of being self-centered. It is the feeling of not only having worth, but of having more worth than others. It is an attitude of superiority and privilege, which leads to arrogance and a disregard for the needs or the importance of anyone else. Jewish philosopher Baruch Spinoza defined sinful pride as thinking more highly of oneself than is just. I would say that it's being full of yourself, so full that you lack empathy or concern for others. It's being so in love with yourself that you can't love others. Thomas Aquinas called this type of self-centered pride a mortal sin because he saw how it led to greed, to envy and lust, and to putting ourselves above not only others, but to him above God. The Buddhist in me sees this type of pride as very much the same human suffering that the Buddha taught. It comes from that illusion of radical individuality and trying to control others as a way of meeting our own needs. This is not what I think we are celebrating when we go to a pride parade or wave a rainbow flag. It is not the kind of pride that we embrace and promote here in our church. Another way to understand the distinctions between healthy self-worth and sinful pride may be to look at their opposites. Around the same time that the list of 7 deadly sins was first embraced by Christian thinkers, a parallel list of corresponding holy virtues was created. Humility is the Christian virtue that corresponds to the mortal sin of pride. Being humble is about seeing ourselves in proper relationship and in context with others. As C.S. Lewis puts it, the humble person does not see their self-worth in competition. They can appreciate and value their own unique gifts and blessings, and can also celebrate the gifts and the blessings that others possess. For Christians and others, humility, in a religious sense, is about seeing ourselves connected to a higher power, to a greater good. I might say this as recognizing our place in the larger interdependent web of all existence, a web that is bigger and grander than just us, but would be incomplete without each of us. Now, humility is not humiliation, and this is where the difference lies. When we talk about black pride, or gay pride, or being proud of our parents or our friends or our children, we are speaking of a pride that is not the opposite of humility. We are celebrating a pride that is the opposite of shame. We have seen oppressed and marginalized communities of many types embrace the power of this word because they are rejecting being defined as less than, being unheard. They are refusing to be ashamed. Being proudly an atheist in a society which denigrates those who don't believe in God is a daring stance to take at times. Being a proud feminist in a male-dominated nation where women are having their bodies being controlled by unjust laws is an identity that leads to empowerment. For too many trans and lesbian and gay people who grew up with messages that they were wrong, or bad or sinful. Being proud of their identity is essential for survival. This is why at the very first Gay Rights March in New York City 52 years ago this month, people carried signs that said they were proud. Today, when we proudly join with people who have been oppressed as allies and friends and supporters, we are making a powerful statement ourselves against fear and hate and shame. And this is essential because shame is destructive. It is unhealthy. It leads us to not value the goodness and the beauty we have within us. It leads us to hide our light and not share it. Shame is all about comparing ourselves to others. And in a sense, it is self-centered in its own way. Whether we are obsessed with how good we are or obsessed with how lacking we are, we can fall into the same sin of falling in outside of holistic relationship. I like the way that Professor Sands puts it in his article. He says, pride should not be confused with self-respect. Unlike pride, self-respect does not imply feelings of superiority. Self-respect is the skeleton of the soul that protects our integrity. A person may have too much self-esteem, but no one can have too much self-respect. Pride should also not be confused with proper self-esteem. Good people should feel good about themselves. Bad people should not. Pride should not be confused with self-love. Christians commonly condemn self-love as a form of narcissism. But Jesus himself commanded his followers to love others as themselves. As Frederick Buechner notes, Jesus' command can legitimately be reversed to say, love yourself as you love others. So my message to you today is do not let anyone call what we are doing and celebrating this coming week a sin. Pride can be harmful when we take it to mean that we are better than others or more important than others. But pride in the form of self-love and self-respect, pride that leads to honoring the personhood of all people, is about as far away from being a deadly sin as you can get. It is actually the deepest blessing and the highest calling of our faith. I encourage you to join others from your church in making a joyful noise for justice and in living out our Unitarian Universalist principles and values together at the Pride Parade this Saturday. In the words of our closing hymn, from the stories of our living rings a song both brave and free, calling pilgrims still to witness the life of liberty. When we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. So may it be with us. Amen, and happy Pride Month to you.